Hi guys, and welcome back. This is part 2 to painting my squigs. And you guys are probably wondering, are those lines going to show up? Well, we'll see. You gotta watch the video first. But anyways, we're gonna start with some Blood Angels Red Contrast Paint by Citadel Miniatures. And we're pretty much just going to coat this entire guy, well, in that color. I'm even gonna do the inside of his mouth and things like that to make it a little bit easier in case I miss a spot later with a different wash or color. And pretty much just get in all of those little recesses, highlight all of those little crevices and things like that, all the little creases in his feet and hands, and well, they don't really have hands, but you get the idea. Just gonna heavily coat that, make sure it's in all of the little details. And you can even start to see some of them. There we go. And then I'm going to go in with a dry brush of Radar Red by Huge Miniatures. Now this color is fluorescent and it does glow in UV light, so this will show up. But I'm just going to dry coat that and make sure I highlight all of the top recesses, all of those little details, little spikies, his tail, especially everything on the very top where light would be shining. And like I said, especially the top. You really want that bright. I'm not really worrying too much about the underneath of him because mostly shadow under there anyways. But you can kind of start to see a lot of those details. And he's a lot lighter than the other guys that we didn't do the dry brush over. So you can see big difference. Then I'm going to start painting the teeth, and I like to use skeleton bone. As cliche as that is, I use that for all of my skulls, bones, horns, antlers, fingernails, toenails, you name it. So I'm just going to be careful. I don't want to get his gums with this. I only want to paint his teeth. So this part is a little more tedious, but it's definitely worth paying a little bit more attention to because his teeth are pretty small. Even though he has some chonky chompers, they're still pretty tiny. So just take your time with this part, because this is our base coat, which is our most important coat, because that's where you kind of start off with things. Some people argue that it's the primer. You're not going to see the primer, so. But I'm just going to make sure I get into all of those little creases in between his teeth. Basically floss his teeth with that paintbrush. And like I said, try not to get the gums too much. We kind of want that to be closer to his skin tone. So far, so good. Cover up a little bit of that red that wasn't supposed to be there. Love fixing mistakes. And then we're going to go in with our Airgrax Earthshade. That is our nice dirty wash that I use for pretty much everything, just about. And we're just going to heavily coat his teeth in that. Make sure we get in between them. And you can really see the detail with that now. This is one of my favorite reasons for using washes and contrast paints. It is so simple to get all of those little details to show up with just one coat or 2 thin coats, depending on what you're going for. Now I'm going to go in with my Ancient Stone, and I do want to start painting some of the mushrooms, kind of a similar way I painted the teeth. Now this is a little bit lighter than the teeth color. And I'm going to correct any mistakes that I made with the red contrast paint as well. But I'm pretty much just going to coat all of these mushroom stems in this light cream color. And you can use like a pastel yellow if you don't have Ancient Stone. You can mix a little bit of something in white if you wanted to get a different color. I'm just looking for that stereotypical mushroom stem color that you see in most cartoons and things like that. It's like off-white, so it's kind of what I'm going for. And I am getting the underneath of the mushroom cap as well. Not really paying attention to the tops of them because I do want to paint them a different color on the top. And this is one of my favorite colors. This is Aethermatic Blue, and this is one of my favorite colors because I use this on just about all of my Nighthaunt as a base coat. And it's this beautiful turquoise color. I just absolutely love this color, so I use it for a lot of different things. But we're not actually using it as a base coat today. We're using it as an actual contrast paint. So these mushrooms are going to look like this when they're finished. They're just going to be a nice light blue, but the contrast paint is going to get into all of those little details and really show up them on those mushrooms. Once again, one of my favorite reasons for using contrast paints. Plus, speed painting is a lot of fun, especially when you have an entire army to do and there's like a million of the same guys. You kind of want to go through it relatively quickly. So this is a different wash than the Airgrax Earthshade. This one is a soft tone by Army Painter, and I love this one because it's so much lighter. It's a little on the yellow side, but it doesn't make things as dirty looking. So if I want them to remain lighter, I normally go with this. And I do use this a lot on my mushroom stems and sometimes bones, depending on how light I want them to be. I'm sure you could use it for teeth and things like that as well. But it's just a little warmer than the Airgrax Earthshade as well. And sorry, I'm trying to get into those little details. I know you guys can't see. I'm so sorry. There we go. And making sure I get underneath as well. Should look like that. Not bad, right? For some speed paint anyways. Then I'm going to use some of my Ancient Stone again. Love this for a dry brush over the teeth and things like that too. That will really highlight them. A little more teeth colored after that as well, instead of just yellow. Contrast Luxon Purple. I really hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, but this is another beautiful purple color that I like to use on a lot of different things. And I actually, you guys didn't see them yet, but I started painting some Nighthaunt with this color here and there a little bit. I don't know if I'm going to do my whole army that, but I'm going to use it for this squig tongue because I think it's funny when they have purple tongues. And I just have a light blue. It's called Marine Mist by Army Painter. And I'm just going to dry brush his little saliva hanging out. He's a little drool monster. Kind of reminds me of my dogs. I mean, I would imagine squigs are very similar to dogs, except for they can eat you. So, something to keep in mind. And this is another color for contrast paints. This is just, I think it's called Pillar Glacier. Pylar Glacier. I want to call it Polar Glacier because it really reminds me of like ice and things like that. But then I'm going to go in with some deep gray. And I'm just going to do the base coat where there's rocks and things like that. That's like a darker gray. I'm just going to use that as a base coat for, well, the base itself as well. Because I want these guys to be little cave-dwelling creatures. So we're going to make the bases look very cave-like. Not a whole lot of plant life, but some dirt and rocks will do. And I just want to be careful not to get the outside edge. You could always go over that with some black paint afterwards if you do. Sometimes I accidentally do, and I don't even realize it. But I guess that's just one of those personal preference things. I mean, heck, you don't even have to do the edge black. You can do it a different color. I've seen people do them brown and green and stuff especially too. But but something like that. Just a solid coat. And that'll be our base coat for our bases. And this is pretty much what I do with all of my stone terrain and things like that. Then I'm going to go in with some Nuln Oil. And that is just a black wash. A very good one at that too. And I'm just going to go over that stone and just make it a little bit darker. Get into all the little details so you can see all the sand and rocks that I put on there. Because that's pretty much all that is sand and rocks glued onto the base. Just to give it some extra texture. And then when that's dry, I'm going to go over it with ash gray. That is much lighter than our base coat. And I'm just going to dry brush all of the little details on the stone. And now it's really going to start looking like stone. Sorry, I know you guys can't see. There we go. And it almost looks kind of white, but not quite. So you can start to see all of those little rocks and things like that. And that's a really simple way to do some fast bases as well. We only did 3 coats of something on there, so that's not bad. You could probably put a dry brush of white on there if you'd like, but it's not completely necessary. I'm just going to make sure I get the edges of the rock with the dry brush as well. Now I'm going to use some matte black. And I'm just going to try my best. This one guy has a goblin on the inside of him. He's being eaten. So I'm going to try my best to kind of get his little cloak in there. And I'm just going to do it standard black. Just to make my life a little simpler and go a little bit faster. Because if I sat here and decided what color I want his cloak, I would be here forever. It's like a trip to Blockbuster. Like, it takes longer to pick the movie than it does to watch it. It takes longer for me to pick a color than it does to paint it. Then I'm going to go in with some Goblin Green because I think it's hilarious that they have a paint for that exact thing. And I'm going to paint his entire body green because, well, that's the color of goblins. And I just like this green. It's pretty bright. You guys don't have to use a bright green. You could use a dark green or like a sage green, pastel, whatever your little heart desires. Depends on what color your little gobbles are. But like I said, this is a speed painting video, so we're not going to spend 17 hours deciding what color to paint something. We're just going to paint it. And that's what I have to keep telling myself. Otherwise, like I said, I'd be here forever and I would just sit there and look at stuff and not paint it. Which sometimes I catch myself doing. Honestly, it's like Warhammer Painter's version of an artist block in a way. It's like, oh, I'll just sit here for an hour and just look at this model. No, I should be painting it. It's my whole thought process. But yeah, I'm just going to pretty much be careful because he's on the inside. Get his little nose painted nice and green. And just do my best to get in there. I have like a really small brush at this time. You could probably go with a smaller brush than I did to make your life a little easier. And like I said, this part is a little tedious. But there's only one guy being eaten, so this is the only guy that I really have to paint a goblin on. Except for the 2 squig herders, which I will get to them. I figured I'd do them separately because they require a lot more detail than just your regular squigs. I might throw them in with a batch of other grots and things like that that I have. Yeah, that took a little while to get in there. Now I'm going to go in with some Athonian Camo Shade. Now this is a green wash by Citadel, and I use this on a lot of things as well. These are all of my main paints that well, basically they're a staple on my paint rack. And that is going to get into all of the little details on his feet and face and things like that. So you can see all of the little toes and his little menacing grin in there. I think this particular model is just super adorable. Yeah, I'm going to be very careful I don't put too much in the mouth, because I don't want it to pool in the wrong places. Tiny areas, you know. I'm going to use some Gamma Green and some Starfire Yellow. Those are my neon colors by Huge Miniature. And I'm going to take a thumbtack, because that's what I had on hand, and I'm just going to boop, one eyeball, boop, two eyeball. I don't know if I like it. Maybe I'll fix that. Who else loves painting eyes on Warhammer miniatures? I know I do. I can tell you right now, I've used so many different things to paint eyes. Thumbtacks, sewing needles. I even used a cat whisker. Hey, whatever works. And here they are. I think they came out pretty decent, especially for how fast I painted them. I mean, compared to most things that I paint, I take forever. I take my time. But until next time, guys.